Hello, everyone. Thanks for being on time. Others will keep coming in because we're right um, about 1 minute past starting. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for participating. My name is Anika Tanay, and I'm the Director of Grants, Awards, and Programs at WESTAF. Um, as you know, WESTAF is the curator and designer with our team on the WESTAF BIPOC Artist Fund. But before we get much further, I want to make sure that we go over our shared agreement. So I'll hand over to Josh to share those.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Anika. Here are our shared agreements. We value humility, learning from our mistakes, and asking questions to gain deeper understanding. We feel empowered to hold one another accountable, establish boundaries, and ask each other for help. We lean into discomfort by facing challenges and conflict with openness and grace. We stay present by listening actively, being mindful of body language, and participating to the fullest of our ability. We share from our own experiences and grow as a team through the inclusion of every individual voice. And we prioritize accessibility and are mindful of our language and ensuring belonging for all. And I'll pass it over to Marcelina for our Zoom norms.
Thank you, Josh. Zoom norms. Please keep your microphone muted when not speaking, your far left corner. Please rename yourself to your first and last name and your state/jurisdiction acronym. Click on Participants, hover over your name, and click the More button to change. To ask questions or make comments, please use the raise hand function and/or write your question in the chat at any time. Click on Reactions in the middle of your screen and choose Raised Hand, or click on Chat in the middle of your screen to write your question or comment. Live transcripts, closed captions, are turned on. You can view or hide them, change the size, as well as other functions by using the up arrow on Live Transcript, which is either in the middle of your screen or behind the More button with the 3 dots on the right side of your screen. And now I will hand it back to Josh to take us through the session outline.
Thanks, Lena. So following this, we'll be going over our team introductions, and then we're going to have a brief overview of the BIPOC Artist Fund just to refamiliarize yourselves with it. Then we're going to have the timeline talking about important dates in which we should have the reviewer results in and when that closes, when that opens as well. We'll talk about the applicant pool, some of the demographics of that to give you more context. We'll go into using the GoSmart system as a panelist to show you how to access the system. And then we're also going to go over some application reviewer expectations for some of the comments and the scoring and just what we're looking for with the scoring. And then we'll have questions and answers. And then from there, we'll have our next steps and closing. And I believe we'll also have some additional time built out into this timeline for other questions and answers during this session. And so now I'm going to welcome back Anika to go over our team introductions.
Thanks, Josh. So we're going to take a few minutes to introduce ourselves and encourage you all to introduce yourselves in the chat. We want to make sure we maximize your time, but we do want to know who you are. So please feel free to introduce yourself, your name, your organization, your location, and your art form. And I will start by saying, of course, Anika Tanay, Director of Grants, Awards, and Programs at WESTAF for the BIPOC Artist Fund. I'm the lead facilitator and group coach. I am zooming in from the land of the Nakachunk in Piscataway, outside of Washington, D.C. and Arlington, Virginia. And my art forms, I'm a singer, and I take arts leadership as an arts practice as well. So I will hand over to Josh to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Ellis. I'm the Grants and Inclusion Manager at WESTAF. I am also located outside of Washington, D.C. in Arlington, Virginia. My art form is I am a trombone player. I also play the flute, took some vocal lessons, and I have my music degree and my master's in arts management. And I'll pass it over to Marcelina Ramirez.
Hi, everyone. Marcelina Ramirez, or you will hear the team often call me Lena. I am with WESTAF, the Grants Awards and Programs Coordinator. I am located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And as an art form, I am a Latin dancer, poet, and as well as I got my undergrad in musical theater performance and am looking into, with Anika's great encouragement, getting my master's degree in arts administration.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. And again, please feel free to fill the chat with who you are. We'd love to know more about all of you. So now we are going to just kind of do a brief over the BIPOC Artist Fund. What is it all about? That's the next slide. Okay, so this is our second year of the WESTAF Black, Indigenous, and People of Color Artists Fund. It is supported by funds that we received from Mackenzie Scott, and it's specifically for BIPOC artists living in the 16 states and jurisdictions of the WESTAF region in order to advance their own artistic practice and goals, and whatever that means to them. So the program really emphasizes self-determination for BIPOC artists and their communities. This award is really about being at the intersection of artistic practice, community, and identity. We're really concerned and thinking about the well-being and safety of BIPOC artists more than we're thinking about how their accomplishments or achievements as an artist, right? And so this program has been designed by the alumni of our Leaders of Color programs that have been going on since 2010. And I know there's some folks that are alumni that are in this Zoom now. And so another avenue of support, in addition to the no strings attached funding, is 2-hour group sessions that will occur monthly for 4 sessions once awarded. We last year, in our first year, had about 160,000 to award, and this year we have about 180,000. We will definitely award one award at least per state and jurisdiction, and there could be a little, maybe 1 or 2 over in some states or jurisdictions. While all budget requests will be reviewed, they know and you all will know that we anticipate the average award being 6,000 to 12,000 per awardee. So now I just want to, I think Josh is going to talk about the application review timeline. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you. So for the timeline, here's an overview of what we're working with. So we're having our orientation sessions today. We have one now, and then we're going to have another one in a couple of hours. And then we also have our application reviewer agreements due today. So if you haven't turned those in, please turn those in before you get started on the scoring. And so applications are open today. If you are in one of our Pacific jurisdictions, that's kind of translating into April 9th. And then applications will be closed to reviewers on April 28th or 29th, again, for those Pacific jurisdictions. And that will happen at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. And so going from there, we will have a decision period between April 29th and the 30th. That's when WESTAF staff will do our back end work, compiling your scores together and making decisions from there. So please have the applications in before that close period so we can use your scores. And then we'll have our awardee announcements. And then we'll have the group monthly coaching sessions. That's just extra context and information for you, but the main dates that we want to focus on are the reviewer agreements that are due today or due before you start scoring, and then the application being closed on April 28th, 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. Thanks.
Fantastic. So now I wanted to speak a little bit about the applicant pool, and I'm gonna fly through a few slides. You all will receive this deck so that you can go through it on your own as well. And then we're recording this session. So we had 476 applicants. Last year we had 456. So we're excited about that. And another thing that we're excited about, as you can see here, they span all 16 applications, span all 16 states and jurisdictions this year. Of course, California is always coming in at the highest as the largest state. And then we have New Mexico, Washington, Colorado, and so on. But representation from every state and jurisdiction. Next slide. And this is just to give you a graphic sense of the diversity that is represented in identities across applicants. Obviously, this pie is got lots of little slivers that are not represented here. So, or not detailed here, but you can see there's a lot of diversity in the group. And the next slide also shows how people chose to self-identify. So there's more even representation and explanation there. So again, just a bird's eye view to give you a sense of the landscape of identity. And I will hand over to Josh to get us started on Go Smart and how that's used.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to go over accessing the system as a panelist, but before I walk you through the login and then I start sharing my screen, I just want to point out these resources and tutorials on the left. And so these are great resources for after today if you need a refresher into working in the Go Smart system as a panelist. And I encourage you all to check out these links as the information has been well built out and organized. And so now I'm going to share my screen. All right, can everybody see that okay? Okay, great. So first, you're going to go to this website, admin.gosmart.org. And then for your username, it's going to be your first name, then last name 2024. And if you have two last names or a hyphen, we only use the first last name or the name before the hyphen. For example, Maricel Hernandez Romero, that username would just be Maricel Hernandez BIPOC 2024. And so my name is Joshua Ellis. So it's going to be Joshua Ellis BIPOC 2024, and then the password BIPOC 2024. And I'm going to log in. I'm not going to save that right now. So you're going to come to this panel dashboard, and to find your panel, you will click, one sec. You're going to come to this panel dashboard, and to find your panel, it will you will click the drop down, and depending on how many panels you're in, it might take a couple of seconds to populate. I put myself and the other admin as panelists on every single panel. So as you can see, it took a second and it populated all of this. This is not what yours will look like. You will not be on every single panel. But once it shows the panels that you will be on, please verify those, that those are indeed the panels that you should have. And then once you confirm, you just click the one to start working and be brought to this overview. And so here's an overview of what your progress will look like and how to access the actual applications within the panel. And as you see here, I've scored 0 out of 8 of my applications in this panel, and none of my applications have a score. And so if you click score applicants, sorry, can everybody still see my screen? It kind of,
Yes.
okay. I'm not sure what's happening on my end. Maybe the eclipse is like messing with it or something. But okay, here we go. If you click score applicants, it will start at the first application here and then go in chronological order by the application ID. And then if you click generate panel book, it will put all of the applications in a PDF for you to print or look at that way. However, if you choose that option, you still have to log back in and provide comments and scoring. And so if we click score applicants, so this will have the first application. Again, it's going to say application scored 0 out of 8. And here you'll have the applicant name and their application ID. And so in this application, you'll have their applicant profile. And then if you scroll a little down, you will find the narrative questions. And here's where you will base your scoring off of. And so applicants also, sorry, I'm just going to give that a second. So here's the application narrative questions. And so applicants also had the option of submitting an image or different media to answer these narrative questions. And so please check it out. If there is like a link here for this applicant in particular, there's no link here. If there's a link located here, and if there's a link located in this next tab called support materials. And again, this applicant didn't have any links here, so there will be nothing here, but some applicants have submitted images or different media for their narrative questions. Scroll a little down again. Next, for the optional supplemental materials, applicants also had the option to submit materials to accompany their overall application. And these materials range from resumes, budget worksheets, visual artwork, recordings, etc. And we'll talk more about what to do with this optional supplemental materials and the purpose of that information later. But in terms of finding it, that information can be found here under the narrative questions. And again, since they're links, they will be found here if they upload that. So again, please check those support materials. So when you're scoring, you will come to this other tab called Scorecard. And if you have a conflict of interest with this particular applicant, you will just click, I have a conflict of interest, and notice how all of the criteria just disappears, and then you click save. If you don't have a conflict of interest, then you will just score using this criteria here. This criteria is the same we've handed out. It goes over identity, need, expression and development, and community. And so for each of these criteria, you have your own score bar and comments. In order to put in a score, you can either type it in, you can use this handy tool right here, or you can use these arrows as well. So you have multiple ways to access that scoring. It might just be easier to just use the bar, and then you have your comments here. Now, if you made all of these scores and you're realizing, I need to reread this application, I need to redo my scoring, and I have all these comments here, instead of trying to erase everything and reset, you can come down here and click reset scores. Yes. And that will just reset the application that you're working on scores. So it won't reset all the scores, just the application that you're working on. And once you do that, you will click save, and then it'll automatically save. So please make sure you're saving your work as you're working through it. So if you only score for criteria 1 and add a comment, and then you move on, when you go back, it's not going to be there anymore. So even if you're pausing and moving on to something else, just click save. Just always click save. And now to go back to that list of all the applications, you would come back up here and click panel, whichever panel that you're working on, right next to application scored, right here, you would click that, and then it will come back to this list. And as you can see, I started the application, but it's incomplete. So these would be good indicators to look for. And when you're done scoring, I have this other panel in which I've done scoring. When you're done scoring, it's a little anticlimactic, but it will just look like this. It will say application scored 5 out of 5 or the number out of number, and then it will have your score here as well. And you'll just move on to the next panel if you're done. Take one more look over, make sure everything is saved how you want it, and then you're good. That's how it's going to be saved. And so once things are saved, that's basically the score is submitted. So there won't be any congratulations, you finished type things like that if you're looking for that. And yeah. I'm going to share one more thing, and then I'll open it up to some questions. Or Lena, can you pull up that next slide, please? Hey, thank you. So here are the application reviewer assignments. Here is how we've divvied up the 476 applications based on what people best to match it around what people said they were able to read. For example, if you said, you know, I can only really read 20 applications, the max we gave you was 24. Some people were asking for 60. Maybe we hit 61 for that. So it was give or take around that amount. And again, for here, you can see which applications, which panels you have been assigned. And so when you go into that dropdown, please make sure that it matches this chart on here. If it doesn't, please contact me because maybe I clicked something wrong. Happens, I'm human. And then on the far right side on this chart, you will see overall the number of applications assigned, and it's listed alphabetically by first name. And so you can kind of see how many applications are on your radar for that. And that being said, I'll give everybody a couple seconds to just check this out. And we'll also be sending this out. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? So I know that was a lot of information. It was a new system. So I wanted to just open it up for 10 minutes for any questions or comments as well about the Go Smart system.
And maybe we should just look at the previous slides in case people were still looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Lena.
Please feel free to, if you like to type your question in the chat as well as raising your hand to ask.
Saw a couple nods. That's good. Okay, so I'm getting the feeling that the information landed pretty well for everybody, so that's good. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, those tutorial resources are very helpful and very laid out. Oh, I do see a hand. Yes, Courtney?
Thank you, Josh. A question just popped into my head. I just wanted to ask if there was sort of in terms of the comments that reviewers leave for the proposals, if there was sort of best practice on that, sort of if there were ways that people in the past have commented on proposals that you really liked, or conversely, if there were ways that people commented on the proposals that you thought could have been done better, sort of what would you sort of prefer to see sort of in that area?
That's an
That is
excellent
actually
question. Thank you, Lena. Yeah, that's an excellent question, and we will be going over that
Oh,
right
sorry.
after this. Yeah, that's going to be our application reviewer expectations, and so we'll get into our commenting and things like that. But for this section, I also wanted to make sure you all had access, you all knew what to look for into getting into it. But you're way ahead of us, Courtney. Thank you. But yeah, so just to recap, to access this, first name, last name, BIPOC 2024 is the username. Password is BIPOC 2024. If you have two last names, just use the first part of your last name or the name before the hyphen in your last name, and please turn in your application reviewer agreements before you get started. And with that being said, I will pass it over to Anika to go over our application reviewer expectations.
Thanks, Josh. And of course, as questions may come up as I'm talking, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll have another Q&A session if you think of things. So this is very important, Courtney. I appreciate you bringing this up in terms of expectations broadly as reviewers, and then specifically looking at comments. We will dig into that. So you'll obviously be reviewing applications for unrestricted funding and support services, and we take your participation in this very, very seriously. It helps us to make sure that we are fair, equitable, inclusive, accessible, and your feedback will be helpful in that. In fact, a lot of things we're doing now is based on feedback that some of you who participated as application reviewers last year gave us. So the review process, you've gone through the system, and what you'll see when you start to look at specific applications are a variety of formats. Applicants are able to submit written responses to questions. They're also able to submit video, audio, visual. They're able to express themselves as they see fit in terms of responding to the questions that are asked. Of course, we ask you to maintain confidentiality throughout the process. I know this is a very niche field of ours, and so we will find that we know people or see people that we didn't know were applying and things like that. Please do not let people know that you are reviewing their application. Please, if anyone asks you about it, if you've let someone know that you're doing this and they've applied, please direct them to us. That's going to be super important. And then conflict of interest, all this is on the Adobe sign. So if there are questions specifically around the agreement, please feel free to put those in the chat while I'm talking and we'll cover those. And it's super important that if there are any conflicts of interest, that those are elaborated. Josh showed you how online in the Go Smart app, portal, you'll be able to indicate conflicts of interest, and on the Adobe sign, you can as well. But ideally, you're doing it in Go Smart because you might find people that you didn't know were reviewing or know that were applying that you do know and have worked with, etc. So you're here and or watching this mandatory session. You can expect to review at least 20 applications. All of you completed a form to say about how many applications you could review. Some have already contacted me that they'd be available to review more. And I would say from here out, if there's any changes from that sheet that Josh just showed, and you're going to get the slide deck, please let Josh know ASAP because we'll need to make changes. And it's super important that we get constructive feedback for each application. And there is compensation of $12 per application reviewed. Next slide, please. Okay, so avoiding conflicts of interest. I would just always say err on the side of caution and abstain from reviewing if you're not sure, whether it's family partner or current or future employer. I think when it comes to this application, it's not as hard and fast. These are not federal or state funds where we have specific guidelines on conflicts of interest. This money was given to us liberally, and so we want to be able to give it in the same. But if you know within yourself that you don't feel comfortable reviewing an application because maybe there's blurred lines or that kind of thing, rather avoid that application and go on to the next. We've ensured that there are multiple application reviewers per application, and we can make adjustments on our end if we need to. So again, happy to help you clarify any conflicts of interest that might exist. Next slide. Okay, so all application reviewers are required to make one constructive comment on every application that they are assigned. And what does that look like? What does that mean? I would offer you this prompt. What can applicants, based on your comment, what can applicants take away from this process that will contribute to their growth, whether they are selected or not? So that issue of, or that concept of growth is super important. This kind of feedback helps strengthen applicants' approach to writing applications in the future. It will benefit them personally to get something that's constructive. The energy within the comment should be strong. We're spending a lot of time on this because there have been comments that did not serve the interest of the applicants in terms of their tone, and we want to make sure that every comment is respectful of the applicant, of the process. We want to provide clear professional comments focused on the application, avoiding negativity or any personal attacks. Professionalism matters. Mean-spirited or harmful comments are unacceptable and may impact reviewer compensation. So we make the comments of it, and you can turn to the next slide while I'm still speaking, but we make the comments available to applicants, and we make sure that, you know, you're not identified. We put them in a separate form and everything. But we have had to really rewrite things to make them constructive, and we don't want to have to do that. We want to make it really clear to you what that is. And if you've read through the agreement, there's even more examples of what a constructive comment looks like. So please, if you just sort of sign that agreement, I would ask you to read it clearly, because that's what's expected of you. So now we're going to talk about scoring a little bit. So there's basically 4 sections in terms of criteria: identity, specific need, creative practice, community, and public benefit. Each of those criteria areas have 10 points assigned, a maximum of 10 points. You've seen on the GoSmart portal how you can adjust the scoring. And so then the prompt that you have as a reviewer, the question that you have within the scoring is, does the candidate have a strong sense of how identity relates to their practice? In terms of the question that is on the application that is related to identity, it's these 2 questions that each applicant responded to. Tell us about your identities. Which of your identities show up in your creative practice, and how do they show up? Specific need, right? Has the candidate articulated their specific needs? And so from the applicant side, and you'll see the questions on the application: what do you need to thrive, ideate, take risks, experiment, dream, make, and/or rest? These points may include financial, material, and holistic health. And then another question: if you could put a dollar amount to your needs described above, how much would it be? And there is a note where it says note there. That note also existed on the application. So as applicants were completing their application, they saw this note that the design team, made up of members of our alumni Leaders of Color Network, asked us not to prescribe a dollar amount, but that really giving the artist the expansiveness to come up with that and be able to articulate what that looks like. That said, we have made it clear on the application that the fund is $180,000 total for this year, and we endeavor to provide funds to at least 1 artist in each of our states and jurisdictions. So just wanted to provide that framing. And then, of course, creative practice. Can the candidate strongly express their practice and how they plan to further develop it? And so the question that aligns with that from the application point of view is, how would having your needs met allow you to advance your creative development? In other words, how can this opportunity help you fully live into your being as an artist? And then community and public benefit. Your prompt says, does the candidate have strong and thoughtful connection to community? Their question said, how will the impact of your work elevate your community? So you're seeing those ties in from identity, need, creative practice, and public benefit. Next slide, please. Okay. So the role of supplemental materials, and this harkens back to the scoring as well. As you can see, we're not asking you to evaluate the artistic ability of any applicant. Our focus is on their approach, their ability to articulate that approach in a clear way, and not on their artistic merit. We're not doing that. So there will be a variety of supplemental materials that will be presented. Some will be work samples, and some have, you'll see resumes, or some have submitted an outline of a project that they're working on. This is not meant to judge artistic ability, and you are not scoring on artistic ability. Rather, it's giving you insight into the artist's approach to things, and we want to make sure that they have a number of ways, should they choose them, to express their approach as an artist. This supplemental material portion is and was optional for the artist. So in some applications, you might not see it. We've encouraged them. We had an information session. We recorded it. We made it available. I've seen that over 300 people have viewed it. So that says to me, at the very least, a number of applicants have at least looked at that. And so it's to their discretion to think about their work, to think about themselves as an artist and what they want to articulate in their application, and will supplemental materials be additive for them. Think of these materials as additional tools for the artist to articulate their goals. I've said this, it gives us a window into their artistic journey and aspirations by reviewing them, and you should, if they're there, review them. You can better understand, sort of how the fund works and how we seek to empower artists to achieve their creative goals. Okay, next slide. I might be done. Okay. So once again, I think we want to open up for Q&A. Any questions, comments, thoughts? I would love to know if everything's clear, then I'd love to know that too. Like, please write in the chat or give a thumbs up. Do you feel really clear? I know there's a lot of you who've done this before, or this is your full-time job in other, I know a lot of the people. So, okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Thank you, thank you. Cool. Yeah, I know there's a few grants people here, so this is like everyday stuff for you. And then there's others who did this last year, and why you've been invited back is because you did a great job. So thank you. You know who you are.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at, just so I'm familiar with like how you want these reviewed, are you looking, when you're talking about the artist being able to articulate, is grammar, specificity, is that, because this is my first time doing this with you, is that important to you? Or are you okay with sort of more generalized, we feel like they're really conveying what's important to them in their identity and creative process, even if it is along more very, very generalized terms?
So thanks for that question. And I would say, in terms of grammar and that, I have encouraged people like, you're presenting yourself, right? I wouldn't personally mark people down for grammar. But what we are looking for is clear articulation of who they are and what they want to achieve with this resource. And so if you, in reading, listening to, viewing in any format, their application, and you sit back and like, I get it, that's what we're looking for. That clarity, that sense of presence in their own body, right? In their mind and spirit that allows them to be able to convey clearly, just so that we get it. Yeah, does that make sense, Anna?
Perfect. No, that's exactly what I just wanted to make sure I was clear about. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Kiana?
Thank you so much, Anika. I have a question regarding the application reviewer agreement. I have not signed it, and I went through my emails to make sure that I didn't have it, and I don't. So I'm curious who I need to contact directly to get that.
I am, thanks for that. And I am in Adobe Sign now, and we'll just send you one. If there's anyone else who didn't get, please just drop it in the chat and I will do that. Amir, did you get yours? You're still there.
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so Kiana, Delia, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing names correctly. Yes, so please just send to me quickly in the chat if you didn't get, and I will do that. Other questions? Any questions about Go Smart?
I see a hand raised by Kiana Moore.
Oh, I need to put it down. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, no, you're fine. I just wasn't sure if you had another one.
Thanks for that question, Keisha. Keisha in the comments asked, are the usernames case specific? Yes, they are. So yeah, capitalize the first letter of your first name and also the first letter of your last name, and then all caps BIPOC 24, and then all caps for the password BIPOC 24.
Are folks able to log in now while we're here, just to make sure that it works? If you haven't already?
Yeah, I just tried and I can't get it.
What's it
All right,
telling
let
you?
me see.
But also maybe we could address this too. Dalia and I are in the same agency and they received the initial thing where you can choose like how many applications. But I received the panelist, the paperwork. So I'm not sure. I can email you after too, but I was gonna ask Dalia if they tried to log in, are they able to log in? Just curious.
Yeah, so if I don't remember creating a login for Keisha Bruce BIPOC 2024. I did create one for Dahlia.
Okay, because when we were looking at the list of assignments, Dahlia's in there, but I'm not. That would probably be why. I probably don't have any applications assigned to me.
Correct. Okay, so
No worries. I totally get it. I use these systems all the time. I'm one of those people who does this in my sleep. You're gonna miss somebody. You're gonna miss somebody. So it's okay.
apologies for that. Let me-
Josh, if you see in the chat, Drea says they can't log in. Monique says it's asking for an code. And then Blanca, they can log in but don't have any panel/applications to review.
Thank you. Let me check out what's going on in the back end. Oh, glad you were able to get in, Monique. Drea, I just want to be sure you're using Andrea to log in, just in case. I know you go by Drea and Andrea, and I used Andrea because that's what I saw in the form. Okay, let me see.
And then Josh has an update in the chat. Blanca was able to refresh their screen and it popped up for them. So I think we're just working on Drea's application. And so Anika, do you want us to have Josh connect with them and then we go into closing, or just wait till it's figured out?
Let me get back to, I'm assuming I'm muted. Let me get back to my, oh, I'm not muted. Okay, cool. I want to make sure, thanks, Lena. I want to make sure that Delia, is it Delia or Delia? Pardon me. And Kiana, that you both received your agreements.
Hi, yeah, I see it in my inbox. This is Delia speaking.
Perfect, thank you.
And this is Kiana, it just popped up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thanks both. And if there's anyone else who doesn't have their agreements? Monique, you have a raised hand?
Yes, thank you. Hi. Would you mind sharing on your screen what the agreement looks like, just so I make sure I have it? Because I feel like I signed it, but I just want to make sure.
You did.
Please and thank you. Okay, great.
But
Thank you.
I will also, let's also just, actually, it's a good point just because we have so much time. If you just indulge for a second, let's just look at it on screen. I don't want to bring up.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning it because I think it's a good idea to just. Okay. Okay. So here is the form that you should have or will receive via Adobe Sign. Thanking you for being a part of the process, and it talks about the program. I touched on a number of these things in terms of the review process, the application formats, the confidentiality, the conflict of interest, being here today at the orientation, the review period, 20 applications minimum and about 20 days. The evaluation criteria, we've gone through that on the deck. And providing feedback and the compensation. And as mentioned here on the agreement form, does talk about some examples of constructive feedback. So for like written applications, if you want to highlight, constructive feedback that is, about a strength would be the powerful narrative in your application effectively conveys your artistic journey and goals. That's an example. Areas of improvement. How do we approach that, right? Consider what I noted, and I've been open that I have a combination of Gemini AI helping me to source some of these examples and my own. And so what I like is this use of the word consider as a verb. Consider adding specific examples of past projects. Consider restructuring the first paragraph of your narrative to provide a stronger introduction, and then it gives some examples of non-written applications. The strengths talks about captivating visuals in your video, beautifully complement your spoken narrative, areas for improvement. Consider incorporating background music, but make sure it doesn't overpower the speaker's voice. So the tone is respectful, positive, right? It's specific. I think these are all good tips for general tips for feedback. Focus on the positive, be specific, maintain that respectful tone, avoiding any negativity or language that could be discouraging, right? Most of us are artists in our own right, and so we know what that feels like. So let's try to encourage rather than discourage, and think about that as we kind of look at our comment. You know, is this encouraging? Is it respectful? You know, these are things that we should ask ourselves. And then the conflict of interest. About erring on the side of caution, it gives some examples of conflicts. And then if you know those conflicts right now as you are completing the expectations and agreement form, you can list those there. There's like 12 slots or so here that you can use. And then you still may open up on GoSmart and say, oh, I didn't realize Anika is applying. I know her really well. And, you know, make sure you click that conflict of interest box. Even though you're putting them on your conflict, you may be putting some conflicts of interest on your agreement form. Still, we're not going through those and collating them to the responses in the portal. So if you see, oh, I wrote Anika on my conflict form, but here it is on the thing, just click that box. We're going to need you to click that box. What should not be happening is that you shouldn't be reviewing any applications from your own state. And that's trying to minimize conflict. So we're so grateful for those who come from outside of our region who are able to like take California on and things like that. So please make sure of that. And then of course, some of you are applicants yourself. We allow that with this program. You're not allowed to review your state. So that conflict is removed, but you can still be an applicant, and we're transparent about that. Okay, and so, yeah, and then there's just place for you to sign and date. So that's the form. Are there any questions coming up? Okay, and I see Kiana, you were able to log in to Go Smart. I don't see any other questions.
Drea, were you able to log in? Josh thinks they figured something out.
Yes, I was. Thank you.
Great. And then the last thing I appreciate the comments in the chat that are saying that this is really thorough. We're really trying to be and make sure, and we are available to you. You're going to have the slide deck. It has all of our emails. I think all of you know them as well. But if you can help us out and complete this feedback form, just a few questions to make sure everything was clear to you. We will email that to you as well. And any ongoing feedback, for those of you who were involved last year, you can see that we've taken some of your comments to heart. So thank you. And that's what we endeavor to do. So please provide us with your feedback. And if there's nothing else, thank you so much. Thanks, Monique. And there is another session if you feel like you need another run through in like an hour or so, or 2 hours. But yes, thank you for being here, and thank you for reviewing. We really appreciate you.